Hello, you're watching TVP World News. I'm Jan Szrewiński. Serbia's mass anti-government protests morphed into scuffles on the streets of the Serbian city of Novi Sad last night. Police used tear gas and smoke cans to contain the situation. Protests in Serbia have been festering for several months now in the aftermath of the Novi Sad railway canopy collapse that killed 16 people. The protesters, mostly students, blame the government for the catastrophe, citing the culture of corruption and impunity as the underlying factors behind it. In the fresh episode of clashes between the demonstrators and the Serbian law enforcement, police resorted to coercive measures and sent in armored vehicles and riot forces to bring the situation under control. Last month, after months of refusing to hold talks with the protesters, President Vučić changed his stance and invited representatives of the protesting community to a televised debate. As Serbian protesters have yet again clashed with the police, questions arise of the future of the country's political crisis. In an interview with TVP World, Ivan Vejvoda of the Institute of Human Sciences in Vienna said that the latest protests are caused by another crackdown by the Serbian authorities.
This particular protest in Novi Sad, and I may add in 10 and more other cities in Serbia that were, by the way, all quiet and peaceful except this one in Novi Sad, were there because of the violence of the police last week, which occupied the university, or rather the Faculty of Philosophy of Novi Sad, and thus transgressed academic freedom and the inviolability of the university campus, which is now under the control of the police.
Donald Trump said he invited Poland to the 2026 G20 summit as an observer state. The invite for President Karol Nawrocki follows a recent meeting between the two leaders in Washington.
No, we're going to invite other countries as observers. They call them observers, but they'll have something to say. But we're going to invite Poland. Already I've issued them an invitation. They're great. They were just here, as you know. Great leader, great new leader. One of the big surprises, I was so happy I endorsed him actually, and he won. And he's going to be a great leader of Poland, but I've invited Poland already.
At least 6 people were killed and at least 11 were injured in Russia's overnight assault on Ukraine. The Ukrainian Air Force reports that the air defenses intercepted 68 out of the 91 Russian Shahed-type attack drones and decoys launched overnight. 18 drones struck 8 different locations and downed wreckage fell in 4 other areas. 6 people were injured across the Dnipropetrovsk region, where the attack damaged medical facilities, a school, apartment buildings and personal vehicles. In the Donetsk region, Russian drones killed 4 civilians and wounded 1 person. In the Kherson region, 2 people were killed and 2 others, including a child, were injured. Several private residences and cars were also destroyed in the attack. More than 2,500 Ukrainian soldiers remain in Russian captivity, the Ukrainian Interior Ministry announced in a Telegram post on Friday. The estimate is based on an investigation led by the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe through its delegation in Ukraine. The OSCE is currently preparing a report detailing Russia's violations of international law, including the Geneva Convention and its treatment of Ukrainian POWs. At least 273 POWs are believed to have been executed by Russia while in captivity, and former captives provided multiple accounts of torture. In August, 33-year-old National Guard soldier Vladislav Nahorny survived by crawling back to Ukrainian-controlled territory for 5 days after Russian forces slit his throat and threw him into a pit, believing him to be dead. Nahorny documented his ordeal in a journal, describing instances of Russian troops mutilating Ukrainian POWs, gouging out their eyes, and cutting off their lips, ears and noses. The OSCE report on Russia's war crimes is set to be released at the end of September. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has vowed to supply oil and gas to Slovakia unless it comes from Russia. The Ukrainian leader made this statement during his meeting with Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico, one of the closest allies of Vladimir Putin in Europe.
The Slovakian Prime Minister raised the issue of the Druzhba pipeline that supplies Slovakia and Hungary with Russian oil, which recent Ukrainian attacks rendered inoperational.
I have spoken about the losses incurred by Slovakia. While they claim these are military attacks on legitimate targets, they are actually harming the Slovak Republic. We should also consider the interests of other countries that are part of the international energy network.
Slovakia and Hungary, unlike the rest of the European Union, have been purchasing Russian gas and oil even after the Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. That's why Fico's words didn't seem to have made any impression on Zelensky's stance.
President Trump has explicitly said that Europe has to stop buying Russian energy resources. Russia is making money from this and, as President Trump said, they are using that money to fund the war in Ukraine.
The Ukrainian president then added that he doesn't rule out the possibility of having Slovakian supplies go through Ukrainian territory under one condition only.
We are open to joint projects in the energy sector and remain open to supplying Slovakia with oil and gas unless, as I made clear to the Prime Minister, the gas and oil come from Russia, because we are at war, period.
Robert Fico is the only high-profile EU politician to have attended Russia's Victory Day celebrations in May in Moscow.
As populist Czech billionaire and former Prime Minister Andrej Babiš is expected to snatch a victory for his right-wing populist party in the upcoming general election, it still remains uncertain whether the controversial politician will find any coalition partners on the Czech political scene. In an interview with TVP World, Filip Narat of the Globsec Policy Institute broke down Babiš's political stance.
He's a harsh critic of the current state of European Union. He is a supporter of, let's say, more to return more competence to the national states. And as you said at the beginning, he's not a big fan of supporting Ukraine. He already announced that if he becomes a prime minister, his party will build a new government, that the Czech Republic will stop sending weapons to Ukraine. They will stop the Czech munition initiative. So in this way, he might behave something like Robert Fico, who also doesn't support Ukraine, is very critical against Ukraine, also against European Union. But in the end, he is not so pro-Russian in the way that he would collaborate with the regime.
Belarusian authorities have arrested a Polish priest under accusations of espionage. Warsaw condemned the incident as a provocation and said they were preparing to retaliate. Jeremy Hołodniuk reports.
Belarus has detained a Polish Jesuit priest on charges of espionage. He is accused of gathering intelligence about the upcoming Belarusian-Russian Zapad military drills scheduled for next week. Polish officials have dismissed the allegations, calling the arrest a political provocation.
Our intelligence services categorically reject this. We will not tolerate such provocations and nonsense coming from the Belarusian side. I still do not have a clear understanding of the purpose of the Jesuits' visit. Based on the information available to me, he was visiting a fellow priest who works in Belarus, and that's all we know for now. We are taking diplomatic steps. We know what kind of regime this is. We know what to expect from it. We've already started intergovernmental consultations on how to respond to this. I'm convinced the matter will not go unanswered.
According to Belarusian investigators, Grzegorz G. has received classified documents from a Belarusian citizen, whom he promised monthly payments in exchange for details about the command structure and military counterintelligence staff.
Belarusian border guards have already tried to carry out a similar provocation earlier when Prime Minister Donald Tusk visited the border. On that occasion, they sent armed masked soldiers. And now, a Polish citizen has been apprehended. It's not true that Polish security services have at any time used members of the clergy to acquire any information information about Belarusian military drills.
An espionage case has been opened under the Belarusian Criminal Code. If convicted, the Polish national could face up to 15 years in prison.
India will continue to buy Russian oil despite the steep 50% tariff imposed by the US in retaliation for New Delhi's reliance on Russian oil. Indian Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said on Friday. The 50% tariff was introduced after Trump threatened Russia with secondary sanctions against its trading partners should it not make any meaningful progress towards peace in Ukraine. The move, however, did little to dissuade New Delhi from continuing its reliance on the Russian crude. According to the Center for Research on Clean Energy and Clean Air, India accounted for 38% of Russian crude oil exports and 19% of Russia's coal exports in the period from December 2022 until the end of June 2025, providing Moscow a much-needed financial lifeline amid global isolation. After EU Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen's plane was hit by suspected Russian GPS jamming, fears are growing over the new tactic used by the Kremlin in its hybrid war against the West. Moscow is accused of deploying electronic interference over the Baltic Sea from its exclave of Kaliningrad, posing a major risk to civil aviation and maritime traffic.
The number of GPS disruptions has been on the rise, according to Swedish officials.
We consider the situation to be serious, since we see a continued increase in these disturbances, not a decrease.
Interfering with GPS signals may cause serious issues for military, commercial and private aviation and maritime vessels.
It's concerning, of course, and worrying that someone is intentionally blocking a global system that's used in both international aviation and shipping and other parts of society. It's serious.
The number of GPS jamming incidents has risen to over 700 in 2025 so far, up from a mere 55 in 2023.
A Canadian soldier stationed in Latvia has gone missing. Vehicle technician George Hall was serving with the 408th Tactical Helicopter Squadron.
Latvian officials issued a public statement about the missing serviceman.
At this moment, I can only confirm that if such a case has occurred, both an investigation and a search are underway. Beyond that, I will refrain from further comments. But overall, yes, of course, we're actively involved in working to address and resolve this situation.
It hasn't been disclosed whether the soldier went missing while on duty or during the off-duty hours outside of the military facilities. A wide-ranging search for the serviceman is ongoing.
We received this information on the day it happened from our Canadian allies. This is one of the soldiers stationed in Lillevard. The Canadian serviceman has gone missing and the search is being carried out together with the state police. Under the leadership of the state police, both the Canadian Armed Forces and our various resources are involved.
The disappearance of the soldier brings back memories of 4 American soldiers stationed in Lithuania who went missing in March and were later found dead in a swamp after a tragic accident. More information about the Canadian soldier is expected to come later as the search progresses.
A screening of an Albanian-language film at Montenegro's Jada Film Fest was disrupted by a group of young men protesting loudly. This prompted a firm reaction from the EU delegation to the country. Montenegro, which by many analysts is tipped to become the next EU member, enjoys good relations with its neighbour and a fellow NATO member, Albania. In response to the incident, one of the sponsors of the event, the EU delegation to Montenegro, said that, quote, "Freedom of artistic expression is an integral part of freedom of speech and one of the essential democratic values." The film Stork, by acclaimed Kosovar director Isa Kosia, revolves around a small Montenegrin village on the border with Albania. According to its creators, the production touches upon themes of the degradation of women, human trafficking, arranged marriages, identity, sexuality, suicide, social expectations, and the struggle for existence. And with this, we conclude this edition of TVP World News. Please stay with us for more latest news, updates, and comments.